All right, so this is session 3 for converting the course to hybrid and online. And I just want to remind everybody of the outcomes for the 5 sessions. So in our first session, we articulated the structure of your course, which included connecting your activities to your learning outcomes, identifying what students will do each week, and then stating how the students will be evaluated. And in our second session, we created activities to help students build relationships with the course content, with the instructor, and with other students. And we also looked at grading options that will allow you to give a lot of feedback without necessarily having to do a lot of work. And so today we're going to we'll look at identifying, finding, and using asynchronous learning tools. And our next session, session 4, is going to be in 2 weeks, and that's going to be looking at synchronous learning tools. And Nate Jackson will be here talking about what he's done in his class. And then our last session, of course, is completing the college or the curriculum committee forms to obtain approval to offer the hybrid and online courses. So we're using the term asynchronous and synchronous, and we're using them because we're talking about online and hybrid learning, but they're not new, right? This is things that we've been doing all along. It's just now we've got to give them names. I don't know quite why, but we have to do that. So synchronous learning, of course, is what's happened in your classrooms, right? For ever since we had classrooms, that was synchronous learning. Now that synchronous learning, of course, might happen in the classroom for a hybrid course, but it also might happen in some kind of online forum. So we'll talk about that in 2 weeks. That might be a chat room or some kind of Skype or something like that. The asynchronous learning, of course, is what happens outside the classroom, the learning that your students do on your own, and we're going to look at a couple different tools for students to do that online. All right, so a little bit about the synchronous versus asynchronous. So we'll start with our asynchronous. So when would you use this? Well, if the students need to reflect on complex issues, you'd probably want to do some asynchronous learning, right? So give them that time to reflect on it. And when students have other time commitments. What's not up here, what I should have put up here is also, particularly if we're going to be doing these over the summer, then when our students are away from campus over the summer, they could still take classes here through an online course, and instead of taking the course somewhere else and then transferring it in. Why would we do this? Well, students have more time to reflect because the sender in that online environment doesn't expect an immediate response, right? It's about giving the students that time to reflect. So how would you do this? You could do this through means such as email, discussion boards, blogs, and then we'll take a look at a couple other tools. So some examples: students reflect individually on course topics via a blog or a vlog, where students share reflections about course topics, and then critically assess their peers' ideas via a discussion board. Okay, so it's giving them multiple ways to provide input and feedback on it. That doesn't happen everybody doing it at the same time. In synchronous learning, you would do this when maybe you're discussing less complex issues. In an online environment, it might be getting acquainted or planning tasks. So if you're having students work in groups, certainly synchronous learning would probably facilitate that. Why you'd want to do this is that the students become more committed and motivated because a quick response is expected. Okay, so you're going to have some of that give and take. And we talked about last week about developing that relationship between the instructor and the students, or with other students, and the synchronous learning is going to help that. Synchronous means could be via video conferencing, instant messaging, chat, and you could complement that with your face-to-face meetings if you're going to be doing a hybrid course. And then some examples: students work in groups to use instant messaging, chat rooms, Skype, etc. to exchange idea and complete tasks, and then online lecture via video conferencing. All right, so we've got 2 asynchronous learning tools experts here with us today. Sean Sosha is a librarian, and he's going to talk about some stuff that's available for you to include in your courses. And then Dan Parker is our academic technology and instructional design coordinator, and he's going to talk about Echo 360 and discussion boards. Is that right? And there's far more to discussion boards than you will ever believe. So I learned a lot last time. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean to go first. Thanks. I'll pop out of here if you want to do something on the computer.
So, thanks, Andrea, and thank you guys for having me. I'm going to talk to you today about a couple of streaming video options that the library has available for you. We have purchased both of these within the last little while, and they're really awesome and valuable. So I'm glad that Andrea provided an opportunity for me to talk to you about it. They're both accessible from online, or from on campus or off campus. So you can assign a video and your students can watch it when they're in their dorms or wherever they are. Also, all of the content is it's not copyright free, but we have copyright to it. So you can show the videos anywhere, anytime you want, without fear of the copyright police coming to get you. So,
and we hope to have a session about copyright in the spring, so we can learn a little bit more about that just in general in our classes.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just as an aside, any of the information that you find in our databases, and there's 250 of them, or that you find searching the catalog, you can integrate into your class and not worry about violating copyright. So you can create an entire textbook outside of your own textbook, but you don't want to talk about that. We're here to talk about other stuff.
No, that's good to know. I think it makes a lot of us relieved.
Yeah. We own the rights to that, or we own the rights for you to use it and your students to use it, right? So we can't like print out a bunch of articles and sell them at the bookstore. That's totally different. We're talking about integrating them into your classroom. So let's talk about Canopy. You can get to both of these databases by going to all databases from the library's website. We'll go to K for Canopy. Canopy is awesome. I really like Canopy. It's amazing. It's visually attractive. The content is broad and of very high quality. There's probably 25, 30,000 titles that are available from here. It's not first-run movies, but we're not that kind of campus anyway. But Swank is first runs. Canopy's strengths lie in international cinema, documentaries, let's see, classic and sort of world cinema. I already said international. So they've got like content from PBS, BBC, and the Criterion Collection. I don't know, is anyone a film nerd ever heard of Criterion Collection? If we had a film program at Capitol, we would be using this every day. The Criterion Collection has, if you guys know any of these, like here's Fellini's 8½, here's The Hidden Fortress, the Kurosawa. It's so crazy. Breathless, Godard, Rashomon. So awesome stuff. A lot of indie stuff in here as well. I mentioned world cinema, really high quality documentaries. So let's look at one of, say we want to show Godard's Breathless. Actually, before we get to a specific one, let me show you, if you go to browse, you can find your area. So let's go to social sciences, and we will do sociology. So here is stuff on civil rights, gender studies, crime, right? It's awesome, right? I don't need to convince you. This is pretty sweet. You can see all the categories at once if you just go to browse. So here's law and criminal justice. There's some history stuff in here. It's really great stuff. So let's say we want to find a history documentary. Here's Howard Zinn's The People's History of the United States. I want to show that. I want to share that with my class. I want to show it. So I would just go here and click on share. And we've got the share link right here. If you want to embed it in one of your websites, and we can maybe show that a little later, we just grab the embed code and throw that in there. You can create playlists and you can create lists and do all that kind of stuff. But it's fairly simple to use. I will tell you, just because, you know, a lot of people just usually grab the top URL, right, when they're, you know, grabbing stuff on the internet. In Canopy's case, they match, but I would always counsel you to grab the share link here from within the record. Okay, similarly to YouTube, you know, if you grab the top URL on YouTube, you won't actually get there. You need to grab the share link itself. Canopy, both of these work on what's called a demand-driven acquisition model. So we have a certain amount of money on sort of account with Canopy, and every time, I think a film needs to be watched 5 times in order to trigger our purchase of it, which is totally fine. That's what the money's there for. It's for you guys to buy the movies, you know. But I want you to remember that because Swank operates on a completely different kind of model and it's a little confusing. All right, so create a clip. So we're going to give it a title, Clips for My Class. I'm going to create, and I'll add a video. Add this video to an existing playlist, or create a new playlist, and edit. All right. 2 clips. Okay. We're going to delete that one. So this is the whole thing, so I'm going to edit this, I guess. Guys, we can figure this out another time. But yeah, here's start time. So we'll start at 00:10. And we'll stop it at 00:12:00. And
You need a colon in there somewhere?
what's up?
You need a colon in the stop time?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this doesn't work either. All right. So we just maybe oh, there it was. Capture and capture. Okay. Save clip. It's 4 seconds. We've got a 4-second clip there. Click here to add a new clip. So we go to more the Ken Burns thing. We'll go to this one. Okay, we edit it. See, this it all works. All right, but let's we'll play it. And this would be okay, capture from the beginning. And we'll end it there. And we'll save the clip. Okay. Save changes. Here's share and embed. So here's your link that you can now send to your class. Pretty easy, guys. Swank is it's first run movies, so it will be Hollywood films, TV shows, you know, again, documentaries, but they're sort of first run things. We can go into here, but I'll show you. This isn't everything that is available to you, nor is it everything that you can request. It's not everything that, it's certainly not anything that we own. So it's just functions on a really, it's the same demand-driven acquisition model, right? So we wait for your requests, but in order to find a movie in here, you actually have to find it. Okay, so there's Clueless. As you can see, you have to actually request this item, okay? So you'll provide a date, you'll provide the course that you're doing it, and how you're going to use it in your course. So that email will go to the library, This will generate an email, go to the library, and we'll say, sure, that sounds good. And we'll purchase this video, right? We'll purchase a year's access to it. So you'll get the video, or you get access to the video, and then anyone on campus can watch it as much as they want. Does that make sense? Totally different from Canopy. You actually have to search for a title. There is very little browsability. So you go to, you have to go to advanced search, and then you have to go to, let's just say, you want everything from 1950 to 1960. Or actually, you can do a genre, I think. Yeah, so there's just subject. So we'll do criminal justice. And you can search through 122 videos. It's not as user-friendly, but as you can see, these are all, like 12 Angry Men will be in here, Anatomy of a Murder, Only for Columbine, right? A Few Good Men, if you're teaching a very dramatic law. Okay.
Is there a way to find out what's already been purchased, so the year's access is available? Or?
Yeah, so anything we do purchase will be on that main screen. So it will be on here, but I know that really makes not a lot of sense, because then, well, did we purchase all these? And we didn't, because these are trailers. So this is just a 2-minute trailer, okay? If we do start purchasing things, and it won't matter, you can request something again. It's not like we pay for it again, right? So you can, if there's something that you, yeah, don't worry about requesting twice, I guess.
Yeah, so these are tools.
You have to register as an instructor, so you may have seen that when we first logged in order to do all this. I made a little website here on all this stuff, so just watch this video on how to create an account, and then here's how to request a video. We just really did that, so it's nothing too complex. But the sort of help stuff is right here within Swing. All right, don't feel like this. You have to think of everything right now, guys. I'm always here, so you can ask me anytime.
So we're going to talk about a couple of asynchronous tools that we have kind of baked into iLearn. I'm going to start with discussion forums, and then we're going to show how Echo 360 lecture videos can be used by your students, sort of as an asynchronous delivery of lectures, and how they can engage with that video content and also engage with you, the instructor. But first, I wanted to talk about discussion forums. So what this is the first course we did over at the seminary via distance. And so all of our intern students at that point in time were out in various churches around the country. And so Dr. Peterson was trying to take a course she had been teaching face-to-face and teach it fully online. So the big area that she made use of within iLearn and in our former LMS was discussion forums. And really what that can do is kind of recreate your classroom discussion. As Andrea mentioned, it does sort of, when you're doing it at a distance, it gives students a little bit more time to kind of prepare the responses. And what that can also be as a benefit is it can sort of draw out students that maybe aren't real comfortable talking in class and don't like having the spotlight on them, so to speak. So it allows you to kind of maybe ask more thought-provoking questions and get a little bit deeper. And then to kind of dovetail with what Sean was talking about, what we did here was just grab the embed code of a YouTube video and dropped it into the top of the discussion board. So what the students do is they log in and they see this video, and the discussion instructions tell them to watch it and then post by a certain date. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger for you. So down here we have a due date, and then she asked them to respond to their classmates by another due date, which is pretty standard form for online discussions. And all of this is baked into iLearn, so what you can do then is have each student post a response, and then the other students can respond in kind, and so you're kind of generating sort of that delayed classroom participation. And in this case, what they found based on watching the history of Lutheranism videos, that some of them had some strange things in common that they didn't actually know prior to starting this class. So after spending 2 years together on campus, they actually, at a distance, learned something about each other via a classroom discussion board. So it's pretty simple to use for the students. They simply post and then click reply. It's like every message board you've ever used since the dawn of the internet. What's cool about iLearn is that, as Andrea mentioned, it does have a lot of different permutations that you can do for discussion creation. So anytime on any page in your iLearn course, if you go to this Create Learning Activity button and select Open Forum, I'll point out there are two different forums. I would always use the Open Forum, and the reason for that I will get into. And this allows you to basically create a forum from scratch, give it a name. You can write your instructions here in the description. You can also mark that description can be displayed on the main page. You can also tell it to display recent posts, so when a student logs in, they can see if there are new posts to respond to. And then this is the thing that's really, for me, it's kind of cool because I'm a big nerd. There are 5 different types of forums that you have access to, and they each do something a little bit different than the other ones. So there are a couple of derivative ones, but if you leave it on standard forum for general use, that's a message board. If you've ever used a message board, you can post as many times as you want, you can reply as many times as you want. But then there's some ways that you can sort of limit and kind of steer the discussion. So if you do a single simple discussion, what that does is it basically allows you to post one thread, you yourself, and the students can respond to it. So they can't post anything new. You're basically just limiting it to one discussion question. If you're doing what we did here in Being Lutheran in America, you could set it to each person posts one discussion. And what that means is that each of your students can post one answer, but then they can all respond to each other. So it kind of keeps it more organized and makes it so that there's just one discussion going on for each student. And this one I like a lot. There's something called Q&A forum, and that's designed to allow you to ask questions, but keep the students from kind of cribbing off of each other. So they can't see anybody else's response until they respond themselves first. So that way they can't look, oh, what did all my other classmates say? I'm going to just basically reword that and say that too. They actually are forced to respond in their own words before they can see and respond to anyone else. And then there's also something called standard form displayed in a blog-like format, and that's more of a display functionality than anything else, where if you've seen a blog where it just kind of lists posts, it would resemble that as opposed to a threaded message board. So there's lots of different methods that you can use in the discussion forum to kind of get the most out of your content and kind of set up that discussion the way that you want it and what will be most effective. The other cool thing is that you can actually assign groups. So if you are teaching an online or a hybrid and you have 20 or 30 students and you want to put them into groups, you can actually set up those groups within your iLearn course and then assign forums. It'll be one forum assignment, but each group will have their own message board that they can use. And you can also set it on and off that they can see the other group's content. So if you want them only working in their groups and not seeing anybody else, you can kind of wall it off that way as well. The other cool thing, and this is the main reason I recommend you always use the open forum, is that you can attach a grade. So if you're grading discussion or participation in a fully online course, you can do that in these forums. And to do that, you would just set it to a manual grade type, and you'll see here now that it's defaulting to 100 points. You can set that to whatever level you want. And then the other thing I would point out that I actually just learned this week is that you can actually assign a rubric. And what that does when you set it up, and if you have a rubric already, you can use it. But when you set up to score as a rubric, it's going to tell you, okay, you haven't set up your grading yet. You can actually go in and build a rubric from scratch for each discussion forum. Or you can just create a discussion rubric and use it every single time. And that way the students know how they're being graded on their participation. So all of this is built into iLearn, and it's all built into this one tool. So it's actually a pretty robust way to kind of take that classroom participation and discussion and move it into that hybrid or online asynchronous method. So that's part one that I want to talk about. Before I move on to part two, I want to see if there are any questions about that. All right, cool. So, the other big piece of asynchronous online coursework is how do you get those lectures out to your students? We'll talk next week about synchronous lecture delivery, but the tool that we use here at Capitol that is the most effective is Echo 360. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to quickly log in as one of my pretend students so that you can see how the students see it. We did TJ Slacker on Monday, so we're going to do AJ Kissup, who's my other student. So when the students come to these Echo links and they click on this, what they're going to see, they're still going to be in the iLearn shell, and again with the privacy statement, but they're going to see some variation of this interface, depending on whether you have slides, a video of yourself, or not. And they can actually turn those on and off. So down here in the sources, you can actually turn the slides off, you can turn it back on and turn the video off. So the students can kind of customize their interface with this material. In this case, I just added some generic slides that I had on my computer. The students can toggle through the slides while I'm talking in my video. You can actually create a presentation that has quiz questions in it, and then they can also play the video at the same time. So this is a video about remote group work that I did. The cool thing that we just got with a fall release of Echo is that now we have the ability to turn on an auto-generated kind of transcript that goes along while you're actually watching the video. What's cool about that is the students can, if you have terminology or things like that, if they're confused, they can see what it is that, that you're talking about. And by clicking one piece of text, it will jump back in the video. So if I want to jump around, you can see the play bar at the bottom is moving each time I click. So it's just as simple as doing it that way. And then what this also allows us to do is to turn on closed captioning as well, because the computer is generating this for us. So now you can see at the bottom, if I turn this off, now my closed captions are down here as well. So it enables us to make videos accessible, depending on how your students would prefer. You know, if they're watching it in a crowded, loud space and they can't really hear, maybe they don't have their headphones, they can actually do the closed captioning while they're watching the video. And then also they can use this sort of transcript in tandem with that to kind of help them follow along while you're talking. So that's a really cool feature. That's brand new. And if you have questions about that, I'm more than happy to talk to you about that. The other cool thing that I love about Echo from the student perspective is this note-taking feature. So let's say I just said something really, really important and they want to take notes. They can actually come into this thing and write a note that was important. And I don't know if you can see this or not. It has automatically time-stamped where that note was taken in the video. It's 216 here. You can see it's 216 there. And it also tells you what slide number they were actually viewing. So what it does is it allows them to take notes with the content as it's being presented to them, and then also have something they can return to study later, to be able to immediately jump around in the video to see highlights. So if I move the video back to 42 seconds and I click on this timestamp, it's going to immediately jump right back to that spot where they took their notes. So they can actually go through each video that you give them via Echo and take a whole list of notes. So I would stress note-taking when you're doing your online coursework. And then what's nice at the end is you can't really see this because it's kind of hard with the contrast, but there's a button to download. It downloads a text file that is timestamped. So they can actually then take that file with them and review their notes and go back and watch the video. The other thing that's kind of nice is that if there's a piece of the video they don't want to take a note, they just want to bookmark it, they can bookmark the scene, and you'll see here it's just going to drop a bookmark in and again provide the timestamp. So if you give them, say, a 30-minute lecture and they watch 15 minutes and they want to stop, go get something to eat, go do something else, they can bookmark it and immediately come and click that bookmark and go right back to where they stopped so they can pick up where they left off. So the player is designed, and all of this again is being done, you can see it's inside the iLearn course, so they're never leaving that environment. And then the last piece of the engagement puzzle is sort of a two-pronged approach. They can actually ask questions about the video while they're watching it. So they can say, I don't understand, can you clarify? And then by clicking this button, they can also timestamp this question. So right now they're the 1:14 mark or on slide 4. And by posting this question, it notifies you, the instructor, that this particular student has a question about this piece of the content. But what it also does is it allows the other students in sort of a discussion board-like way to answer that question as well. So one of the nice things they built in, this button down here, allows them to post it anonymously. So if the student thinks they're asking a dumb question, for example, they don't want people to know, I don't understand this, by clicking that post anonymously, it will still post the question to the instructor in the class, but that particular student isn't being singled out for asking the question. So if I post this question, you'll see here now there are some questions that we had from the other day when we did our presentation. So these are down here, were the ones we did during the Monday presentation. But then what this allows you to do also is there's this threaded discussion feature where once you post the question, it posts it to this discussion pane for all the rest of the students in the class and the instructor. So it has some kind of Facebookian sort of things where you can give it a thumbs up if you like the question. That's your bag. You can also see here there's a little speech bubble with 0, so that would be where if students responded to that question, you would see sort of that threaded response. So what we're trying to build here is this idea that you can provide the lecture and the students can engage both with the content, with you, and then also with each other in sort of that community of inquiry that you want to build in an online course. And all of that is kind of done via the Echo interface. And then what's nice for you, the instructor, is that all of the time that they're doing this and engaging and watching, it's collecting data and telling you how much they're watching it and what questions they have and how many questions they have and who watched it multiple times and how long they watched it and all that good stuff. So you can go through and kind of parse that and see which of your students are really engaging with the content and which aren't. The last thing I would point out, there's a little flag up here. If somebody clicks that, it marks that place in the video as confusing. So if you start to see multiple students being confused about a specific piece, that can sort of be feedback to you that lets you know maybe I need to sort of clarify my materials here. But then the nice thing about this is you can record these lectures on your home computer, on your work computer. It's all tied to a cloud account. And then what we do at CELT is create a space for you for each course section, and you just upload them there, and you can actually create a course list, and the students can then access all of the videos in your course. So it's kind of hard with the contrast here, but this basically is what a course would look like if you uploaded 10 to 12 different lecture videos. And so the students can kind of go through and they could play each specific video. This one is just my desktop because that's what you do.
Can you release those at a certain time? So
Yes. So I'm not sure if I can do it from here because I'm logged in as a student, but when you publish them, you can tell them to make unavailable until a certain date, and then you can also turn it off after a certain date as well. So are there any questions about any of this stuff?
How do you get to, what is Echo, like how do you get to it?
So I didn't want to get too far into the weeds of how we do all that stuff. If you go to echo360.org, you would then just log in with your Capital email and credentials. I do have to make sure that you have an account set up first, so if you're not able to log in, just send me an email and I can make sure that you're set up. So then from there, there's also in all of our Fall 18 iLearn shells, there should be an instructor help section for Echo 360 that kind of walks through the basics of downloading personal capture, how you create content, how you upload it, how you publish it to your courses. I think we also have something in there about how to make the links in your iLearn course, but I'm also more than happy to sit down on a one-on-one basis for a half hour here or there to walk you through it. So yeah, if you're not able to log in when you go to the website, just send me an email, and I will make sure that you have an account. Cool, thank you.
All right, so that's more homework for you. So take a look at your weekly schedule that you've been creating. And again, think about where you can use some of these tools in that schedule. You know, what might be appropriate for using one of the films or documentaries from Canopy or Swank. What would be appropriate for repurposing a lecture that you might want to record or creating a lecture. Where might you want to use some of those discussion boards? And then again, for places where you still have holes in that calendar, where you don't have enough time in that week for your students to be doing things, then maybe in our session 4, you can take a look at some of the synchronous tools and use some of those tools and to fill in some of those holes. Any questions about anything? All right, thank you so much. And of course, thanks to Dan and Sean. I really appreciate you coming in and working with us.